All right, rock and roll. Welcome to the Scorched Earth Podcast. I'm your host, John. It is beautiful Sunday. Let us figure out if I can get the date right. Sunday, March 30th, 2025. Welcome one, welcome all. Friend and foe alike are all welcome in this ecosystem. If you could, though, hit that like and subscribe button. It means a lot to us. Leave some comments. We're not afraid. We're not afraid of trolls. We're not afraid of criticism. Trust me, I like it. Let's go. Let's get in the ring, guys. Let's get in the ring. I'm going to go kind of a weird off topic here. I like to start the podcast with weird stuff, kind of, or life stories or things like that. Kind of bring the reality of the world. You know, we live in this ecosystem, and sometimes if you just follow the news, you can get a little dissuaded, discouraged, you know, and I like to start it out with like something that maybe, hopefully, we can all relate to, whatever. I love sports. I watch sports. I'm single, so I watch a lot of sports. And, you know, today, like I've said before, I record this the night before so I can be ready for all you East Coast friends, okay? And today, in the world of sports, and it's actually a great day for sports, we've got college basketball March Madness. We've got tennis, major tennis down in Miami. Djokovic is going for his 100th tournament win. We've got pro basketball, which I enjoy. We got baseball. We got hockey. We got a lot of stuff. I mean, we got basically everything in baseball. And we got everything but football. And I'm not sure if all 8 of those fill in that void, but let's go with that theory, okay? Let's go with that. It's a great day. So I'm going through the sports channels, and I come across the Arkansas Derby. Now, when I grew up here in Southern California, there was no casinos. There was no gambling. You could go to Vegas, kind of, but, you know, I was kind of underage. You know, I actually started going to Vegas, I think, when I was 19. And so I would sometimes go to the racetrack. They're not carding anybody. They didn't care. And racing was considered at that time the sport of kings. You know, now, you know, they literally can barely get people who are collecting bottles and cans to come into their facilities, right? It's definitely fallen on hard times, but I have a soft place in my heart for racing. And I grew up with it. There's a lot of people in the sport who really, really love the animals. And, you know, I'm a huge animal advocate. You know, like I've said, I volunteer time at a dog rescue, and you know, it's not for everybody. It's kind of a little hard because I only do it 3 or 4 times a year, and I want to take all the little critters home with me, especially the ones that aren't so appealing to most people. So I am. Oh yeah, welcome, John. You got a mic in front of you. And so I grew up and I enjoyed the sport. And then, you know, things happened in the sport, and I don't want to get too negative on it. And there was some real shady stuff that they did to animals. And that's really a turnoff for me. You know, you want to treat an animal bad. Yeah, I got no place for that. But, you know, I've always been conflicted. And here's the thing, honestly, and I really do believe this, and there's a lot of issues that this goes to, is you don't have to have the answer for everything, right? It's not all black and white. Sometimes it's gray. an example would be like the transgender issue. I personally am an advocate of transgender LGBTQ rights, but I really don't know how I feel about them competing in women's sports. Okay, I don't, really, if you put the gun to my head, I don't know. I let the NCAA, let the world bodies of sports figure that out. I really don't have, and maybe I'm a chicken shit for that, maybe, but I don't think so. I don't have to have an answer for everything. Okay? So with horse racing, I'm conflicted because there's a lot of people who depend on it for their livelihood. And then there's a lot of people who are just there to exploit the animals, and I'm always conflicted with it. So I watched the race today, and there was this 72-year-old trainer, and this is why I love the sport, of Colt Beamer. And this is a guy who's been kicking around in the game for 40 years, and now he finally has a horse that might go to the Kentucky Derby, the pinnacle of all pinnacles, right? And good for him. The horse came in third. I don't know if it's going to get to the Derby. I hope it does. I was rooting for the guy. And it's in Arkansas. So, man, they brought out all the big guns. They brought out the band from the University of Arkansas. It probably truly is the cultural high water mark of the year for culture in Arkansas. Okay? Sarah Huckabee, maybe you ought to put some sidewalks in there. Maybe you ought to put some goddamn money into your education system. It's a little old being 48th in the country in education. Okay? Thank God you're the one picking up the back end. Okay? You're the caboose on the education train. Great. It's going to be great when the Department of Education leaves and they don't put minimum standards on the state of Arkansas. I mean, they might as well be a tribe in New Guinea that hasn't had any contact with civilization. That'll be what we call Arkansas. Hey, can the kids read or write? Can they communicate in English? Oh. They're going to be using sounds, just like Sarah does. God, what a corrupt, venal human being that is. But let's move on. Maybe your dad can pimp some more, Q10 or some memory enhancement. Oh, my God. What are you doing, Mike Huckabee? But I watched it, and I was incredibly touched by him, and I was rooting for him really, really much. And in that moment, I also saw the thing I hate the most. Okay. And I'm not going to, I watch probably 4 races a year. This happened to be one of them. I usually don't watch it, but I watch the Triple Crown, the Kentucky Derby, the Belmont, the Preakness, and then I usually watch the Breeders' Cup. And I was rooting for this gentleman. And his horse, like I said, came in third, and he's he doesn't really know how to feel because he doesn't know if he's going to the Kentucky Derby, but his horse did really well, and his horse is giving him a shot at that dream he's had for 40 years. And I was so happy of it. And then I'm watching the race, and there's a horse that's coming in 8th, and it's last, or 10th, 8th or 10th, whatever. And it's trailing the field, right? And this horse is trying, okay? In this world, not everybody has the same abilities, okay? Animals don't, humans don't, not. And I don't know why that goes blank like that. And the jockey, he's 2 lengths behind the other guy. You only get money for the top 4, and he's still going to the whip on the horse. And I'm watching him, and he must hit the horse on his hind quarters or hip or whatever you want to call it. I'm not the equestrian, so I don't know what that part is. And I saw him, he must have hit him 4 or 5 times coming down the stretch. And I'm thinking, what is that? What is that? And I got real tired of some of the more venal and evil, what I call evil people in that industry going, well, it doesn't hurt him. You know, it's a 1,700-pound horse, and you know what? F you. What do you need to do it for? What is the purpose? The horse comes in 7th. He comes in 8th. He's not getting you any money. Why do you got to keep hitting him down the stretch? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. You know? I don't know. All right. I don't really know what I accomplished with it, but that was the love-hate in the thing. I see a lot of really good people, and I'm really rooting for them because I know they do care about the animals. And then on the other hand, in the same event, I see some total dick who's hurting an animal just to hurt an animal. You know, and I would have, you know, you want to just like go through that TV screen and just punch the little mother effer in the face. You know? Huh. Signs and wonders. Signs and wonders. All right. We're off and running on the Scorched Earth Political Podcast. If you could, like I said, hit that like and subscribe. Probably after that story, you don't want to. I get that. You're probably say, where are you going? Where are you going? Come on back. But we're taking no prisoners. We're telling no lies. Now, I went to a protest at Tesla today. In Southern California, there was protests all over the Southland. There was protests of Tesla and Elon Musk all over the country. And I applaud that. Okay? I saw a group. I did a short video. Hopefully you saw it. There was 2 different parts within probably a couple hundred yards of each other. There was a crowd of like 40 or 50 people at the corner by AM PM, and they were trying to solicit honks and things from people. I went farther down the road right in front of the Tesla facility. There was actually 6, 8 people there, but a lot of people honked as I was doing the video. And like I said in the video, I applaud these people taking time out of their life. We're just barely 2 months into this new administration, trying to do these things to save democracy. It speaks to the soul of this country. And I love it when people are getting out there and fighting for this, because it does matter. I will say this unequivocally. I have no interest and I have no compassion for anybody who keys or vandalizes a Tesla. F you and F you. And here is the conundrum. Most of the people who bought Teslas, let's just say before November of last year, were mostly trying to do it because it was the green thing to do, which we all believe in. We all believe the world is burning up. Let's not take our anger out on our fellow brothers and sisters who are probably, I think it's 80% of the people who bought Teslas are Democrats. Don't do that to them. It's not fair. Now, you wanna be cute, and I've done this a couple times, the Nazi wave. Yeah, okay, fine. But a lot of times they just bought a car, and then all of a sudden, the guy who owns the company, we found out he's Adolf Hitler's, kindred brother. Okay? They didn't know. Hell, a year ago, we thought Elon Musk was this genius guy. And then we soon discovered he was the apartheid Nazi, racist, baiting, human being, despicable. Okay? My thing is, boycott him. Don't buy his vehicles. There's other electric vehicles. That I want to buy an electric vehicle. I do. Probably going to be a couple years, but there's other companies, Rivian, things like that. GM has some, Ford has some. Buy them. Don't support this guy, but do not, and I repeat, do not vandalize somebody's car. That's their car. You know how it is when you get an fender bender and then you're like, oh, God, do I got to turn this into the insurance company? These people didn't do anything, and most likely they're on our side. They just happen to have the wrong car. Okay? Enough said. An individual got caught desecrating, vandalizing, whatever we want to call that dealership in Vegas. Painted, did some damage to electrical charging stations. Hey, charge him. I'm not going to go with the domestic terrorism stuff, though, because that's bullshit. You know, Pam Bondi, President Trump said it's domestic terrorism. Hey, let me give you a little idea what goddamn domestic terrorism is. It's called January 6th. And I literally, before this podcast tonight, sat there for 20 minutes trying to get this through my head. The Biden administration didn't charge any of those people on January 6th, the 1,600 people that were criminally convicted, with domestic terrorism. I was like, wow, they got to have done some. Seditious conspiracy? Absolutely. Domestic terrorism, Biden's administration and Merrick Garland did not do it. Now, I don't know if it's because they're pussies or what, but they didn't. And then Trump wants to put a domestic terrorism charge on people who go in there and vandalize a Tesla dealership. Hey, prosecute them to the full extent of the law. But domestic terrorism, what kind of bullshit's that? I mean, really? Really? I'd add one more really for dramatic effect, but I think the moment's passed. All right. So I'm not sure if the Democrats are pussies or the Republicans are tyrants or a little bit of both. I guess we'll figure that out in the days to come. But, and we're going to see this sometime today, probably on Meet the Press, Kristen Welker interviewed Donald Trump. Oh, God, here we go. So she asked him whether he pressured automakers to avoid raising prices after his 25% tariffs on imported cars and parts go into effect this week, April 2nd, I believe it is. Trump denied that he told CEOs to control cost. Now, the Wall Street Journal is reporting, and this isn't exactly a liberal bastion, liberal media outlet, that last month Trump got the CEOs together and told them not to raise prices when the tariffs went into effect. So now we possibly have the president lying, which I know comes as a shock to all my listeners. Trump then told Kristen Welker, no, I never said that. He said, I couldn't care less if they raise prices because people are going to start buying American cars. Now, I want to tell you something about what goes on in the presidency. They live in a bubble. They really do. And Trump may live in a bigger bubble than most because he's gotten very favorable Supreme Court rulings. He won an election. He won the popular vote. You know, he did things I don't think he really expected, but hey, it happened, right? But if you remember back in the day when George Bush, 2000 circa, was the president, I remember when gas prices were skyrocketing in the summer. I don't know what year it was, 2004, 2005. And somebody at one of the press conferences says, what do you think about the rising prices of gas? And he said, I didn't know they were rising. And he said, they said, well, do you know what the price is? And he goes, I don't know. I think it's $2. Now, at the time, it was like $3.75. And look, it's not like the president's gassing up his car. I get that. But there's moments like with Bush, with Katrina, where they waited 5 days to respond with FEMA. And there's the classic shot from the White House photographer of George Bush in Air Force One looking down at the devastation of New Orleans. And they actually released that photo. It wasn't like it was leaked. It wasn't an AP photo. That was the official White House photographer, and they released it through the White House account. That's how out of touch they were. Same could be said with Joe Biden. And I don't think the Biden administration, I agree with what they did, but I don't think they understood of how bad the optics looked about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now, at the end of the day, you could talk yourself silly, and I understand what the argument was. They were just finally getting out of there. You know, when Trump came in 2017, he said, we're going to get out of Afghanistan, and he didn't do a thing. He did the same thing they all do, and that is Bush, even to a little extent Obama, Trump, that they sign the agreement to get out of there on the next guy's watch. That's what they all do. And Bush kicked the can on Afghanistan and Iraq down to Barack Obama. He kicked it over to Trump. Trump kicked it to whatever. He didn't really commit to a date because he didn't know if he was going to get reelected in 2020. And thank goodness for democracy, we got a little delay on the assault, but it's back in full force, right? So presidents lose control of the narrative. And it's like I've told you, and this is the only place you're going to hear it is, that's why they're doing White House briefings every day. In the first go round of Trump 1.0, he didn't do them. He went months without doing them. And he lost control of the narrative. And I will give him credit for that. He has learned you need to be out there with the press every day. You need to, right? But Trump is losing control of this narrative. He is absolutely losing control of what these tariffs doing and what is going on with the pricing in America right now. Look, let's call it what it is. Joe Biden lost the election because of high prices. Now, in Trump's mind, he thinks he doesn't have to worry about it because he's not running for another election. But all the Republicans in the House and all the Republicans in the Senate sure as hell are. And that's where it's going to break. That's where it's going to break. Talking about the House, let's talk about our friend. I want to use a derogatory term, but let's talk about Greg Abbott down there in Texas, the Imperial Republic of Texas. So sadly, Sylvester Turner, Representative Sylvester Turner, former Houston mayor, passed away. He passed away about a month ago. And he has a very strongly Democratic district in the suburbs of Houston. And it is in Texas, it is up to the governor to call for a special election. Guess what Greg Abbott isn't doing? He's not calling for the special election. Not yet. Now, sorry, I'm a little thirsty today. I don't know why. Getting all worked up. His office revealed or stated this week an announcement on the special election will be made at a later date. In 2021, Greg Abbott called for a special election 2 weeks after Republican Representative Ron Wright became the first member of Congress to die after contracting COVID-19. And he also called for one last year when the vacant seat of Democratic Representative Sheila Jackson came open 2 weeks after her death in July. This is from the leader of the State House, Democratic Congressman Gene Wu. He says this is very clearly playing political games. They know the U.S. majority in the House is on razor-thin margins. So he's delaying calling for the election. All right. You know, that's they just get down, they get dirty. I'm also going to talk about, I was kind of surprised, and I didn't really bring it up yesterday. Elise Stefanik is the congresswoman from New York, and she was nominated to be the UN ambassador, and they pulled her nomination. And I honestly thought she had been tentatively confirmed on January 30th. It was just a formality. They just had to go through some protocol, I guess. And they I didn't know she hadn't resigned from Congress. I was stunned at that. They pulled her nomination, and so she can go back to Congress. Oh. So on Thursday, President Trump announced that he was pulling Representative Lee Stefanik nomination to the United Nations over concerns that it could threaten the Republicans' tight majority in the House, posting on his Truth Social that it is essential that we maintain every Republican seat in Congress. Trump's announcement reflects a growing concern among GOP members in the House who are fearful their already threadbare majority will jeopardize control of the House and their agenda. I thought, and maybe I'm missing something, maybe everybody out there can give me a little info. I thought he had a clear mandate. What happened to the clear mandate? Nothing to see here, man. I got the mandate. I'm going to ram it through. I got Doge. I got all this other stuff. Oh, okay. Maybe you don't have quite the mandate you thought you did there, Slick. Maybe you don't. All right. That's it for today. Don't be sad. I appreciate you listening to me. It means a lot. We're all in this together. If you could, hit that like and subscribe button. And I just want to tell you I love you all. Thank you. You know, it's a tough time. We're in this together. I need you. We need each other. You know, I love the comments we get. I love that there is such a passion. I saw it today on the streets at the Tesla protest. But, you know, I know we're all in this, and I know it seems a little daunting, and I know it seems a little dark, but we're going to win. We are on the right side of it. And I got to believe, if we can't believe that being on the right side matters, then we have nothing. We don't have a soul. We don't have a purpose. And together we are going to win. All right. That's it for today, and I will see you tomorrow.